Hello and welcome back to Live from Paris. It's time now for Campaign Chronicles, our daily update on the race to be France's next president. And today we're looking at the incumbent President Nicolas Sarkozy, whose re-election campaign's now well and truly underway. He gave a major TV interview last night, revealing several new policy announcements, focusing on tackling unemployment in particular. Aurore Dupuis has more.
Jobs, salaries and spending power. Those are the key issues at the heart of Nicolas Sarkozy's electoral proposals. France's unemployment rate has reached a 12-year high at nearly 10%. It's one of voters' main concerns. In his re-election bid, Sarkozy's promising welfare reforms for poor workers.
Giving unemployed people a bonus at the end of the year doesn't work. I propose to reform it completely and propose something else. I say that out of the 7 million French workers who are working the minimum wage, that is to say those who earn between 1,200, 1,400 and 1,500 euros, we cancel the extra charges they face on their salaries to increase their pay.
Sarkozy also suggests changing the way top executives are paid. Salaries could be submitted to a shareholder vote. The French president also promises to boost France's growth after 3 years of economic gloom. But for the opposition, Sarkozy's only recycling his programme from the previous election.
In 2007, his candidacy was all about spending power, but we haven't seen any improvement in the past 5 years. He vowed to halve the unemployment rate, yet every day 1,000 extra people lose their job. These proposals made a few days before the vote will not solve the issue.
Nicolas Sarkozy is still trailing behind his socialist rival, François Hollande. According to recent opinion polls, the gap between the two candidates is shrinking, however. They have until the 22nd of April to swing voters in their favour.
Aurore Dupuis there. And for more on President Sarkozy's campaign, I'm joined by our press reviewer, Elena Casas. Hello, Elena.
Hello.
Now, tell us, how have those new policies gone down?
Well, Le Figaro, the right-wing paper, reckons their candidate is back in the game. They've got Sarkozy, Hollande, the gap is closing as a headline. They've got an opinion poll that has Nicolas Sarkozy on 27% of first-round voting intentions and Hollande on just 28%. So a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about a 10-point gap. It does seem to be closing since Sarkozy announced he was officially standing for his re-election. Now, the paper says Sarkozy is managing to impose the subjects that he wants to talk about into the campaign, whether that's immigration, unemployment, competitivity, or, as Aurore was saying, spending power. They say in their editorial that Hollande, essentially, his main challenger, is running away from those important subjects, saying that he doesn't so much resolve problems as try and push them under the carpet by promising France things that they can't possibly afford, like bringing the retirement age back down to 60. And whereas Sarkozy, at least according to them, is tackling them. Now, how is he really tackling them? As the report pointed out, he wants to change tax policy for people earning less than 1,300 euros a month. So that's people on or just above the minimum wage. He wants them to pay less income tax to make work pay, so they would earn more that way than they would on benefits. People staying on benefits, though, we're going to have to do 7 hours a week at least of compulsory work under his new propositions, although they would be paid to do that. And he also made a surprise attack last night in that TV interview on the high salaries that some CEOs are earning, saying that in the future the boards of companies should have to improve how much how much the CEOs are paid, because some of them are paying themselves what he thinks apparently is an outrageous amount of money. He also in that interview apologised for some mistakes that he's made as a president, saying that he wouldn't do things the same way again, like that very famous dinner at Le Fouquet's, one of Paris's most expensive restaurants, on the night of his last election. So you can see, as the business paper Les Echos says, that he's really trying to distance himself from the image of the bling-bling president, trying to present himself as more ordinary, trying to appeal to France's working classes.
But you mentioned that apology there, which is interesting because he's not known as particularly humble, but is it a good idea to draw attention to mistakes like that?
That's what Libération is asking. Apparently we're going to see more apologies coming from Nicolas Sarkozy. He's set to publish a book soon, which apparently is going to contain a number of his regrets. Things like the very expensive exotic holidays with Carla Bruni at the beginning of his presidency that attracted so much attention from paparazzi photographers, that kind of thing. Now, is it actually a good tactic in an election to start apologising for your mistakes? Well, that's what Libération asks Jean-Pierre Raffarin, who they've interviewed today, who was once Sarkozy's prime minister. Now, he says this election is getting more and more personal, And that's what Sarkozy is trying to do with the apologies. He's trying to show France's voters his human side, trying to show that he doesn't quite believe that he is infallible. And he also says the campaign will be tough, and as a result, what the French are looking for is the humanity in their candidates. Ferrand is known as a centrist, and the paper asks him if he's not worried by the rather right-wing tone of some of Sarkozy's recent pronouncements. But at least according to the former Prime Minister, the right-wing tone is necessary now to gather votes together on the right. And then as we move towards the election, the President will start announcing more centrist policies to win over floating voters. But we'll have to wait and see if that happens.
OK, thanks very much indeed, Elena, for that look at today's campaign issues. And don't forget, there'll be more from Elena, more French politics at the same time tomorrow, 9:50 here on France 24. Well, that's where Live from Paris comes to an end. But do stay tuned for more headlines coming up right after the break. Bye for now.
The people in Kano live in constant fear. Not a week goes by without a deadly attack on government targets. Terrorist group Boko Haram is behind these attacks, all part of their plan to institute Sharia law in northern Nigeria. Recent government crackdowns have only made this Muslim faction more extreme and wanted more followers. Reporters, Nigeria under threat from terrorism. Today, 11:45 p.m. Paris time on France 24.